What happens when Johnny Depp finally sits across from Joy Behar on live television and decides he's done staying quiet? What starts as a routine daytime interview quickly turns into one of the most uncomfortable and tense moments the audience of The View has seen in years. Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The camera opens on the familiar panel. The audience is clapping loudly as Johnny Depp walks onto the stage. He gives a small wave, smiling politely, dressed casually in a dark jacket and tinted glasses. The hosts greet him warmly at first. Joy Behar leans over the table with a grin while the crowd continues cheering. "Johnny Depp is here," Joy says loudly. "This audience has been waiting all week for this." Johnny laughs softly and sits down. "Thank you. That's very kind." Whoopi Goldberg smiles. "Good to have you here." Sunny Hostin nods politely while Alyssa Farah Griffin adjusts her cards. Sarah Haynes jumps in immediately. "You know, people have wanted to hear from you for a long time," Sarah says. "Not even just about movies. About everything." Johnny nods slowly. "Yeah, I figured eventually I should probably leave my cave." The audience laughs. Joy immediately cuts in. "You've been selective, though. Very selective." Johnny glances toward her. "I suppose so." Joy leans back. "A lot of people said you disappeared because public opinion shifted." There's a slight pause. Johnny keeps smiling, but it tightens a little. "Or maybe I disappeared because I was tired." The audience reacts with soft applause. Whoopi quickly steps in. "Well, fame can do that." Joy shakes her head slightly. "Sure, but celebrities also benefit from attention. You can't love it when it helps your career, and then resent it when people ask hard questions." The audience gives a mixed reaction. Johnny looks down briefly before answering. "I don't resent questions. I resent assumptions." A few audience members clap loudly. Joy notices immediately. "See, this is why people are fascinated by you. You always say things that sound mysterious." Johnny smirks. "Or maybe I just answer honestly." The audience laughs harder this time. Sunny tries to redirect the conversation. "Let's talk about your new film first, because that's obviously why you're here." Johnny nods thankfully. "Please." The screen behind them flashes clips from his new project. The audience cheers again. Johnny relaxes slightly while discussing filming overseas, working with younger actors, and returning to independent productions. "It felt quieter," he says. "Less machinery. More human." Sarah smiles. "That sounds healthier." "It probably is." Joy interrupts again before the atmosphere can settle. "But the public still connects you to controversy first," she says bluntly. "That follows you everywhere." The audience immediately goes quieter. Johnny folds his hands together calmly. "Sometimes people don't let you move on." Joy raises an eyebrow. "Or maybe they feel you haven't fully addressed things." Whoopi looks toward Joy carefully. "Joy." "No, I'm serious," Joy says. People still debate everything around him constantly. Johnny's expression changes slightly. Not angry yet. More tired. "I think people debate things they weren't even present for," he says quietly. The audience claps again. Joy shrugs. "That's public life." Johnny turns toward her fully now. "You've talked about me on this show for years." The audience reacts instantly with loud "ohs." Joy smiles awkwardly. "Well, it's a talk show. We talk about everyone. Not everyone the same way." The room gets noticeably tense. Sunny looks down at the table for a second. Alyssa shifts in her chair. Joy crosses her arms lightly. "So you think we were unfair?" Johnny pauses before answering. "I think sometimes people forget there's an actual human being sitting behind the headline." The audience applauds loudly. Joy responds quickly. "But you're also one of the biggest stars in the world. The scrutiny comes with that." Johnny nods once. "I understand scrutiny. I don't understand enjoyment." The crowd reacts again. Whoopi jumps in carefully. "I think what he's saying is there's a difference between discussing news and making entertainment out of pain." Joy exhales. Nobody was trying to entertain themselves. Johnny finally leans forward. "Really?" The audience erupts with nervous laughter and applause. Joy looks surprised by the directness. "Excuse me?" "There were episodes where people laughed," Johnny says calmly. "There were jokes. Little punchlines. Maybe you forgot." "I didn't." Now the room is completely tense. Sarah quietly says, "Okay." Joy straightens in her chair. "Comedy exists on this show. We joke about politicians, celebrities, everybody." Johnny nods slowly. "Sure. But not everybody watches their life collapse while an audience claps." The audience goes silent. Even Whoopi pauses. Johnny continues speaking carefully. You know what the strange part is? People who've never met you start speaking like they know your soul. They decide who you are from 10-second clips and headlines. Sunny finally speaks. That level of public judgment has become extreme everywhere. Johnny nods toward her appreciatively. Exactly. Joy doesn't back down. But some people watching would say accountability matters too. Johnny looks directly at her again. Accountability and public humiliation aren't the same thing. The audience applauds loudly again. Joy smiles tightly. You came prepared today. Johnny laughs softly. No, I came nervous. That line changes the energy for a second. Sarah leans in. Were you actually nervous to come here? Johnny nods honestly. Very. Why? He looks around the table before answering. Because I knew this conversation would happen. The room quiets again. Whoopi folds her hands. Fair enough. Johnny continues. And honestly, I almost canceled. Audience murmurs spread through the studio. Joy looks genuinely surprised now. Really? Yes. Then why didn't you? Johnny pauses for several seconds. Because eventually you either speak for yourself, or you let everybody else keep doing it for you. The audience bursts into applause. Alyssa finally joins in more directly. Do you feel misunderstood? Johnny chuckles quietly. I think most people are misunderstood. That's a very actor answer, Joy says. The audience laughs awkwardly. Johnny grins slightly. Probably. Joy continues. But some critics would argue you benefited from sympathy too. The tension instantly returns. Whoopi glances toward Joy again, as if silently warning her. Johnny keeps his composure. Sympathy wasn't exactly my goal. But public support shifted heavily toward you. Johnny nods once. After years, Joy shrugs. Public opinion changes fast. Sometimes irresponsibly fast. That gets another big audience reaction. Sunny tries to calm things slightly. Social media absolutely amplifies extremes. Johnny points gently toward Sunny. That machine can destroy people before facts even exist. Joy responds immediately. But celebrities also use that machine when it benefits them. Johnny sighs softly. There's this idea now that human beings must either be heroes or monsters, he says. No middle. No complexity. No patience. The audience applauds again, longer this time. Joy waits for the applause to die down. So are you saying the media treated you unfairly? Johnny thinks carefully before answering. I'm saying people stopped talking to each other like human beings. Whoopi nods slowly. That part one agree with. Joy looks unconvinced. But public figures still have responsibility. Johnny smiles faintly. You keep saying that word like I disagreed with it. The audience laughs loudly. Joy laughs too, though slightly defensively. Well, because every answer sounds philosophical. Johnny leans back. Maybe because I spent years trying not to lose my mind. That line lands heavily. The audience goes quiet again. Sarah softly says, That's honest. Johnny shrugs. It's true. For the first time, Joy pauses longer before responding. Then she asks carefully, Did you watch what people said about you during all of that? Johnny laughs under his breath. Unfortunately. And did it hurt? He looks directly at her. Yes. The room becomes completely silent. No jokes. No applause. Johnny continues calmly. Especially when people sounded certain about things they couldn't possibly know. Joy looks down briefly at her notes. Then she says quietly, I think sometimes television moves too fast. Johnny nods slowly. That's all I'm saying. Whoopi finally steps in firmly. And I think that's actually a good place to pause because this conversation is getting very real. The audience laughs nervously. But the tension is still there. Johnny takes a sip of water while Joy looks toward the crowd, clearly aware the audience is now leaning toward him emotionally. Whoopi smiles toward the camera. We'll be right back after the break. As the music starts playing, the audience buzz becomes louder than before, with people whispering, clapping, and staring at the panel while Johnny and Joy continue exchanging a few quiet words off mic just before the show cuts to commercial. The cameras come back from commercial, and the energy in the studio feels completely different. The applause is still loud, but now there's tension sitting underneath it. Some audience members are leaning forward in their seats, waiting to see what happens next. Even the hosts look more cautious than before. Whoopi smiles toward the camera. We are back with Johnny Depp, and during the break we were actually having a very interesting conversation. Johnny chuckles lightly. That's one word for it. The audience laughs. Joy Behar smiles too, though the edge is still there. I said interesting because slightly uncomfortable sounded too dramatic. More laughter breaks out, but it's nervous laughter. Johnny nods. Fair enough. Sarah Haynes jumps in quickly, clearly trying to soften things. I think people appreciate honesty, though. Especially now. Johnny turns toward her. I hope so. Sunny Hostin folds her hands together. The thing that's interesting to me is how differently celebrities handle public scrutiny now compared to 20 years ago. Johnny nods slowly. Well, 20 years ago you could still disappear. Audience laughter. No, seriously, Johnny continues. You could actually vanish for a while. Now people expect immediate statements, immediate reactions, immediate apologies, immediate explanations. Everybody becomes a public investigator. Joy leans in. But silence can also make things worse. Johnny looks at her calmly. Sometimes. Other times silence is survival. The audience applauds. Joy notices immediately. You're getting a lot of support out here. Johnny glances toward the audience. I appreciate that. Joy smiles. You know audiences are emotional, though. Johnny laughs quietly. And television isn't? That gets a bigger reaction. Whoopi actually laughs loudly this time. Okay, that was good. Joy points at Johnny jokingly. See, this is what he does. He turns everything back around. Johnny shrugs with a grin. Occupational hazard. The tension eases slightly for the first time in the interview. Then Alyssa Farah Griffin speaks up. Can I ask something honestly? Johnny nods. Please. When all the public stuff was happening, did you ever feel misunderstood by people in entertainment specifically? Like your own industry? Johnny pauses longer this time. Yeah, he says quietly. That part hurt more than strangers online. The audience becomes quiet again. He continues slowly, choosing every word carefully. You expect strangers to say terrible things sometimes. They don't know you. But when people you've worked with for years suddenly become distant, you notice it. Sunny nods sympathetically. That isolation must be difficult. Johnny smiles faintly. Hollywood is a very strange place. The audience laughs softly. No, it is, he continues. People love you loudly when things are good. Then suddenly everybody develops amnesia at the same time. Whoopi raises her eyebrows knowingly. That's not new. No, Johnny agrees. But it becomes clearer when you're on the receiving end. Joy crosses her arms slightly. But some people would say public figures also carefully build their image when things are going well. Johnny looks toward her again. You really don't like me being reflective today. The audience bursts into laughter. Even Joy laughs. No, I'm just saying image management is part of celebrity culture. Johnny nods. Of course it is. But there's still a human being underneath the image. Joy responds quickly. And there's also accountability underneath charm. The audience reacts again with scattered applause and murmurs. Johnny doesn't answer immediately this time. He leans back and looks out toward the audience for a second. Then he says quietly, you know what's strange? People think if someone becomes famous, they stop feeling embarrassment. Or fear. Or shame. The room quiets instantly. Johnny continues. They think success somehow removes your humanity. Like once your face is on movie posters, you become emotionally bulletproof. Sunny nods slowly. But that's not true, Johnny says. If anything, it gets worse because now your worst moments become entertainment for millions of people. Joy interrupts. But public interest doesn't happen for no reason. Johnny looks directly at her. I never said it did. There's another tense silence. Whoopi jumps in before it escalates too fast. I think what people are reacting to is the emotional cost of public scandals now. Everything becomes content immediately. Sarah agrees. That's true. Every headline becomes a meme within 5 minutes. Johnny points toward Sarah. Exactly. Then he turns back toward Joy. And once people turn your life into a joke, they stop caring whether it's true or not. The audience applauds loudly again. Joy exhales slowly. You keep circling back to the media. Johnny gives a small smile. Because the media is powerful. Are you blaming shows like this? The audience goes silent again. Johnny answers carefully. I'm saying words matter. Joy raises an eyebrow. Words matter here too, Johnny. Hosts get criticized constantly. And how does that feel? Joy pauses unexpectedly. The audience notices immediately. It's not pleasant, she admits. Johnny nods gently. Exactly. That moment changes the energy again. For the first time, the disagreement starts sounding less combative and more personal. Joy looks at him for a second before speaking again. You know, people think hosts don't feel things either. Johnny smiles faintly. Then maybe we have something in common. The audience applauds warmly. Whoopi grins. Now we're getting somewhere. But Sunny decides to push deeper. I want to ask about anger, she says carefully. Because public anger becomes addictive now. Online especially. Johnny nods immediately. Oh, absolutely. Did you become angry? Johnny laughs softly. At times. Of course. Did that change you? He thinks for a moment. I became quieter. The audience listens closely. Johnny continues. I stopped trusting attention. I stopped trusting headlines. I stopped trusting people who suddenly wanted interviews. Joy smirks slightly. And yet here you are. The audience laughs again. Johnny grins. Against my better judgment, apparently. More laughter. Then Joy says something that shifts the mood again. Well, some people watching might say this is also carefully timed. You've got a movie coming out. Public redemption stories help careers. The crowd reacts immediately with loud murmurs. Whoopi turns toward Joy sharply. Joy. No, it's a fair question, Joy insists. Johnny stays still for a second. Then he nods slowly. It is a fair question. The audience quiets down. Johnny continues calmly. But let me ask you something. Joy gestures toward him. Go ahead. If I stayed silent forever, people would say I was hiding. If I speak publicly, people say it's strategy. So what exactly is the correct way for somebody to exist after public humiliation? The audience erupts into applause. Several people actually stand briefly. Joy looks caught off guard by how strongly the audience reacts. Johnny keeps speaking before anyone interrupts. That's the strange part nobody talks about. People demand vulnerability from public figures, but only if it arrives in exactly the format they approve of. Sunny nods slowly. That's actually very true. Johnny continues. If you cry, they call it performance. If you stay calm, they call you cold. If you disappear, they call you guilty. If you return, they call it manipulation. The audience applauds even louder now. Whoopi leans back in her chair. That's a real point. Joy folds her cards together carefully. But do you understand why audiences are skeptical sometimes? Johnny nods. Absolutely. Then why seem frustrated by it? Because skepticism became certainty. That line hangs in the air. Even Joy doesn't interrupt immediately. Johnny looks around the table. I think people forgot how dangerous certainty can be. Sarah quietly says, especially online. Johnny nods. People build entire opinions from clips edited down to 15 seconds. The audience murmurs in agreement. Then Joy suddenly asks, Did you resent this show specifically? Whoopi looks surprised by the directness. Johnny pauses. The audience becomes dead silent. He finally answers carefully. No. Joy looks skeptical. Johnny continues. I resented feeling reduced. Nobody speaks. I resented watching deeply personal moments become debate topics between commercial breaks. The room is completely quiet now. Johnny's tone stays calm, but heavier than before. And honestly, sometimes I watched people discussing me like I wasn't even alive anymore. That line visibly affects the audience. Even Joy's expression softens slightly. Sunny speaks quietly. That's a painful statement. Johnny shrugs lightly. It's true. For a moment, nobody interrupts him. Then Joy says something quieter than before. Television can become desensitized. Johnny nods once. So can audiences. Whoopi looks toward the camera, clearly sensing the intensity building again. But before she can transition, a woman in the audience suddenly shouts loudly. We love you, Johnny. The crowd erupts into applause and cheering. Johnny looks genuinely embarrassed and smiles awkwardly. Thank you. Joy laughs lightly. Well, you definitely still have supporters. Johnny glances toward her. That was never really the point. The audience quiets again. Then he adds softly. I just wanted people to remember I'm a person before I'm a headline. The studio falls silent one more time as the camera slowly moves across the table, catching the expressions on every host while the tension continues building live on air. The applause dies down slowly, but the atmosphere stays heavy. Nobody at the table looks fully relaxed anymore. Even the audience seems careful now, like they understand the conversation has moved past celebrity gossip and into something more personal. Whoopi Goldberg clears her throat and looks toward the camera briefly before turning back to Johnny Depp. She says, this is probably one of the more honest conversations we've had here in a while. Johnny gives a small smile. That's either good or terrifying. The audience laughs softly. Joy Behar leans back in her chair again, studying him carefully. I think people are surprised because they expected you to come in defensive. Johnny nods once. I was defensive for a long time. That answer catches everyone slightly off guard. Sonny Hostin speaks carefully. What changed? Johnny pauses before answering. Exhaustion. The audience becomes quiet again. He rubs his hands together slowly before continuing. At some point you realize defending yourself nonstop changes you. You wake up angry every day. Suspicious every day. Waiting for another headline every day. Sarah Haynes nods sympathetically. That sounds emotionally draining. It is, Johnny says quietly. And eventually you don't recognize yourself anymore. Joy tilts her head slightly. But some people would argue public criticism comes with fame. Johnny smiles faintly. There it is again. The audience laughs nervously. Joy smiles too. No, but seriously. People watching at home are thinking that. Johnny turns toward her calmly. And I understand that. I'm not asking for immunity from criticism. Then what are you asking for? He answers immediately this time. Perspective. The audience applauds. Johnny continues speaking while the applause fades. There's a difference between discussing someone's actions and turning their suffering into daily entertainment. Joy folds her arms lightly. You really believe that happened to you? Johnny looks genuinely surprised by the question. You don't. The audience reacts loudly again. Whoopi quickly steps in. Okay. But Joy keeps going. I think the audience empathized with you eventually, yes. But during those years, people were responding to information that was everywhere. Johnny nods slowly. Exactly. Everywhere. And that's not necessarily the fault of one show. I never said it was. Joy raises an eyebrow. But you keep looking at me when you say it. The audience gasps and laughs at the same time. Johnny smirks slightly. Because you keep asking. Even Whoopi laughs under her breath. The tension eases for a second, but not completely. Alyssa Farah Griffin finally speaks up again. I think something bigger is happening here, though. There's this cultural shift where public figures are expected to become symbols instead of people. Johnny points toward her. Yes. Alyssa continues. People project everything onto celebrities now. Politics, morality, relationships, identity. Everything becomes symbolic. Sonny nods. And once somebody becomes symbolic, nuance disappears. Johnny leans forward slightly. Exactly. He looks around the table carefully. I think people stopped allowing room for imperfection. Joy interrupts quickly. But some mistakes are bigger than imperfection. Johnny's expression tightens slightly. Yes, he says calmly. And some accusations become bigger than truth. The audience erupts again. Whoopi immediately looks toward the crowd. All right. But now the tension is fully back. Joy sits forward. Do you think the public owes celebrities apologies? Johnny shakes his head immediately. No. Then what do you want from them? Nothing. Joy looks unconvinced. That's hard to believe. Johnny sighs softly. You know what I actually wanted during all of that? He asks. The audience becomes quiet. I wanted people to stop enjoying it. Nobody interrupts him. Johnny continues slowly. That was the part that disturbed me. The excitement. The memes. The countdowns. The body language analysis. The jokes. The room stays silent. I remember sitting alone one night seeing strangers laughing at the worst period of my life like it was a season finale. Several audience members visibly react emotionally. Sunny lowers her eyes briefly. Johnny keeps speaking, calmer now. And after a while, you start wondering whether people even remember you're real. Joy's tone softens slightly. You really felt dehumanized. Johnny nods once. Very. Whoopi leans forward now. I actually understand part of that, she says. This business can flatten people into characters. Johnny looks at her gratefully. Exactly. Joy still looks conflicted. But audiences also become emotionally invested, she says. That's part of celebrity culture too. Johnny responds carefully. There's a difference between investment and consumption. That line gets another strong reaction from the audience. Joy notices the applause again and shakes her head with a small smile. You know how to phrase things. Johnny laughs quietly. I've had a lot of time to think. The audience laughs too. Then Sarah asks something more personal. Did you ever think about leaving acting completely? Johnny pauses longer than before. Yes. That answer surprises the audience immediately. You seriously considered quitting? Sarah asks. Johnny nods slowly. There were moments where I thought, maybe the quieter life is smarter. Sunny asks softly. What stopped you? Johnny smiles faintly. Oddly enough, fans. Audience applause breaks out immediately. Johnny continues. Not because they defended me online. Honestly, social media became noise after a while. But real people. Letters. Conversations. Quiet kindness. His voice lowers slightly. When somebody walks up to you and says, "I hope you're okay," without asking for anything, that matters. The audience applauds warmly. Joy watches him carefully for a moment before speaking again. "You know what's interesting?" she says. "I think people expected you to come in angry at the media." Johnny smiles. "I was." The audience laughs loudly. "But anger burns out eventually," he continues. "Then you're left with whatever's underneath it." "And what was underneath it?" Sonny asks. Johnny thinks carefully. "Sadness, probably." That answer changes the room again. No applause this time. Just silence. Johnny looks down briefly before continuing. "There's something lonely about watching millions of people form opinions about your life while you're still trying to survive it yourself." Whoopi nods slowly. "That's real." Joy finally asks something that sounds less confrontational than before. "Did you watch the show during those years?" Johnny gives a small laugh. "Against my better judgment, yes." The audience laughs nervously. Joy winces jokingly. "Oh." Johnny smiles slightly. "There were days I agreed with things said here. There were days I didn't." Joy looks directly at him. "Were there days you were angry with me personally?" The audience immediately reacts. Johnny pauses, then answers honestly. "Yes." The room goes completely silent. Joy takes that in quietly. Johnny continues before she responds. "But not permanently." Joy looks surprised by that. Johnny shrugs lightly. "I don't think anger can survive forever unless you feed it constantly." Sonny nods slowly. Johnny looks toward Joy again. "I also understand your job." Joy lets out a small breath. "You do?" "I do." The audience watches closely. "You react to culture in real time," Johnny says. "You discuss stories while they're unfolding. That environment moves fast." Joy nods slowly now. "But fast environments can still hurt people," Johnny adds gently. That line lands harder because of how calm he says it. Joy looks down at the table for a second before responding. "You know, there were moments during those years where even I wondered if everything had gone too far." The audience murmurs quietly. Whoopi glances toward Joy with surprise. Joy continues carefully. "Not specifically one side or another. Just all of it. The spectacle." Johnny nods slowly. "That's the word. The spectacle," Joy repeats. For the first time, they actually seem aligned. But then Alyssa asks the question everybody can feel coming. "Do you think celebrity culture is getting worse?" Johnny laughs softly under his breath. "I think humanity is struggling with empathy right now." The audience applauds loudly. Johnny continues. "People are rewarded for outrage now. Not understanding. Not patience. Outrage." Sonny points toward him. "That's absolutely true online. And television sometimes follows online culture instead of leading it," Johnny says carefully. Joy smirks slightly. "That sounded aimed at us again." Johnny grins. "If the shoe fits." The audience explodes with laughter and applause. Even Joy laughs despite herself. Whoopi shakes her head smiling. "This man came ready today." Johnny laughs. "No, honestly, I came terrified." Sarah smiles warmly. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true," Johnny says. Then his expression grows serious again. "I knew walking in here meant reopening things I spent years trying to survive." The audience quiets instantly. "And yet," he says softly, "I also knew staying silent forever would probably destroy me more." Nobody speaks for several seconds. The cameras catch the audience completely focused now. Then Joy quietly asks one final question before the segment ends. "Do you feel forgiven?" Johnny looks genuinely caught off guard by it. He thinks for a long moment, then finally says, "I think I'm still learning how to forgive the experience itself." The studio falls silent as the hosts absorb the answer, and the camera slowly fades toward commercial with the audience sitting in stunned quiet rather than applause for the first time all show. When the show returns from commercial, the atmosphere inside the studio feels completely transformed from the cheerful celebrity interview it started as nearly an hour earlier. The audience is quieter now, more focused. Even the hosts seem aware that something unusually personal unfolded on live television. Whoopi Goldberg looks toward the camera first. "We're back with Johnny Depp, and I think this has become a much deeper conversation than anybody expected this morning." Johnny laughs softly. "Including me." The audience chuckles gently. Joy Behar looks over at him, her tone noticeably calmer than earlier. I'll say this honestly. I didn't expect you to be this open. Johnny nods once. I didn't expect to be. Sarah Haynes smiles warmly. That's usually when conversations become real. The audience applauds lightly. For the first time all interview, the tension at the table feels less combative and more reflective. The earlier sharp exchanges have settled into something more honest. Sunny Hostin leans forward slightly. I think people watching are seeing two things at once, she says. A celebrity conversation, yes, but also a conversation about how public judgment works now. Johnny nods. That machine affects everybody eventually. Joy glances toward him. Even talk show hosts. Johnny smiles faintly. Especially talk show hosts. The audience laughs softly. Joy shakes her head with a grin. Careful. You're making me agree with you now. That's dangerous territory. More laughter spreads through the room. Whoopi smiles. See, this is the part people at home don't always understand. Conversations can get tense without people hating each other. Johnny nods. Exactly. Joy looks toward him more seriously now. I want to say something. The audience quiets immediately. Joy sets her cards down on the table. There are times in television where we move so quickly through stories that we forget the people inside those stories are actually watching. The room becomes silent. Johnny listens carefully without interrupting. Joy continues. And I think sometimes this business rewards strong opinions more than thoughtful ones. Whoopi slowly nods beside her. Joy exhales quietly. That doesn't mean difficult conversations shouldn't happen. But maybe sometimes we forget the emotional weight attached to them. The audience applauds softly. Johnny looks genuinely appreciative. That means more than you probably realize. Joy gives a small shrug. Well, I'm not apologizing for doing my job. Johnny smiles immediately. I wouldn't ask you to. The audience laughs warmly, relieved by the lighter moment. Then Johnny adds quietly, I just wanted to feel seen as a person again. That line changes the mood one final time. Sunny folds her hands together. Do you feel that today? Johnny pauses, then nods slowly. More than I expected to. The audience breaks into applause. Several people stand briefly. Johnny looks uncomfortable with the attention and laughs softly while shaking his head. Please don't make this weird. The audience laughs harder. Whoopi smiles. Too late for that. Then Alyssa Farah Griffin asks the final major question of the interview. What happens now for you? Johnny leans back thoughtfully. I think peace becomes more valuable as you get older. The audience quiets again. I spent years reacting, he continues. Reacting to headlines, reacting to noise, reacting to anger. Eventually you realize if you keep living that way, the noise becomes your identity. Sarah nods slowly. Johnny continues. And I didn't want bitterness to become my personality. That line gets another emotional reaction from the crowd. Joy studies him carefully for a second before speaking again. You know what's funny, she says. People online probably expected screaming today. The audience laughs knowingly. Johnny grins. People online are usually hoping for fire. Whoopi laughs loudly. That's true. But honestly, Johnny says, most people are just tired. The room quiets again. Tired of outrage. Tired of teams. Tired of hatred disguised as entertainment. Sunny nods immediately. Absolutely. Johnny glances toward the audience. And tired of forgetting each other's humanity. Applause fills the studio again, longer this time. The camera catches several audience members nodding emotionally. Whoopi finally smiles toward Johnny. Well, I think whether people agree with you or not, they definitely heard you today. Johnny nods politely. That's all I wanted. Joy suddenly says something unexpected. I think this may be the first interview in a long time where people saw you instead of just the story around you. The audience applauds loudly again. Johnny looks genuinely moved by that comment. Thank you, he says quietly. There's a brief silence at the table. Then Whoopi breaks it with a smile. And on that note, before we all become emotional on daytime television. The audience laughs. Whoopi gestures toward Johnny. Your movie comes out next month. Johnny laughs too. Ah yes, remember the movie? Everyone at the table laughs now, including Joy. For the first time all interview, the atmosphere finally feels relaxed. Johnny talks briefly about filming again, traveling, and spending more time away from Hollywood. The conversation becomes lighter, but the emotional weight of the earlier moments still hangs in the studio. As the segment begins wrapping up, the audience applause feels different now. Less celebrity excitement, more emotional appreciation. Whoopi turns toward the camera. Thank you to Johnny Depp for being here today. The audience erupts into loud applause and cheers. Johnny stands up, shaking hands with the hosts. Sarah hugs him quickly. Sunny smiles warmly. Alyssa thanks him quietly. Then Johnny reaches Joy. There's a brief pause. Joy smiles first. Johnny smiles back. And then they hug lightly while the audience reacts loudly. Whoopi points jokingly. Well, now social media won't know what to do. The crowd bursts into laughter. The music starts playing as Johnny waves toward the audience one last time before walking off stage. But the real reaction begins after the cameras stop rolling. Audience members immediately start talking among themselves. Some are emotional. Some are debating what was said. Several people pull out their phones before they even leave their seats. Backstage, producers are already discussing how intense the segment became. Staff members quietly admit they didn't expect the interview to turn that personal. Within minutes, clips from the conversation begin spreading online. One video titled "Johnny Depp Says, I Just Wanted People to Remember I'm Human" gains millions of views almost immediately. Another clip showing his tense exchange with Joy Behar starts trending across multiple platforms. Some viewers praise Johnny for staying calm and honest under pressure. Others defend Joy, arguing that she asked necessary questions instead of giving a completely sympathetic interview. Debates explode online. Johnny handled that with class. Joy was too aggressive. No, Joy was doing her job. This was the most real episode of The View in years. Media outlets begin covering the interview before the afternoon is even over. Entertainment commentators call it one of the most emotionally honest celebrity interviews on daytime television in recent memory. By evening, hashtags connected to Johnny Depp, Joy Behar, and The View are trending everywhere. And interestingly, one specific moment becomes the most discussed line from the entire interview. I just wanted people to remember I'm a person before I'm a headline. That clip spreads faster than any other. The next morning, reaction videos, opinion panels, podcasts, and entertainment shows are all discussing the interview. Some call it uncomfortable. Others call it necessary. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. It felt real. And in a television world full of rehearsed celebrity appearances and polished PR answers, that honesty is what people remembered most. Thanks for watching the Star Talks. Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.